Hello, friends. How art thou? So, another uneventful day. I took today off because I made myself sick yesterday. I thought I was over my cold, and it turns out I wasn't. I was knees deep in it, basically, right? So, I had to take today off and rest up some, and you can see I'm trying to stay warm. Uh, and all that goodness, and all that goodness. Let's see if it's streaming correctly. So we got some stimulus checks. It seems, it's like the only language the Democrats speak. Apparently, it's like Trump gives out a $2,000 check to every American. Suddenly, they want to open the government. It's like all they understand is giving away stuff. Um, I would like to know the final number. So, like, do they know for sure how much revenue is generated from the tariff thing to say that? Like, does $2,000 for each person put us, or each household rather, does that put us even more in debt? Or is that something where the full cost is actually covered by the tariffs, Just so, I mean, like, it's hard to kind of argue with, isn't it? I mean, to a lesser extent, for a longer period of time, you think that, a yearly stimulus check based on tariff revenues would be something I think everybody would like. It just, I guess the beginning negotiation processes for tariffs and stuff is a little harsh, because it is like a new system or a revamped, newish kind of system or whatever. But you would think like now that we've gotten over the hard part, where like we can come to terms with reasonable tariffs, certain agreements or whatever, like the Chinese and the Canadians or whatever's going on there for now. You're like, if you can say that based on that, you're able to give out a $2,000 check per household every year, I think people would appreciate it, to the point where once trade normalizes and it's not so impactful on your day-to-day life, especially if you're a crypto person, right? That that's like, I think, common sense kind of things, but hopefully. But the problem I think with the tariff thing is that you'll get a spiteful Democrat in office either next term or the term after or whatever, and they'll say, well, we're going to do away with the Trump era slave tax, whatever they call it, how they are about the shit, right? And and then do away with something that seems like now, after all the road bumps, seems to be doing something. I don't have all the numbers on my imaginary thing here, but to say, like, I guess so long as the tariff dividend, I guess is what they're calling it, right? As long as that doesn't put us further in debt and the costs are actually covered by the tariffs, then yeah, I think that would be something that everybody would agree on. It's like sometimes though, it's one of those things where the guy did get elected, right, by like a record number. Uh, so the idea is sometimes you do have to trust the person that was elected to do what it is that he's there to do, which I don't know if it was or wasn't his plan from day one to do a tariff dividend check for each American household, but that is his job to figure these things out, I guess, as the president. And it sure seems like he did, and he might have been his plan from the beginning. Whether it was or whether it wasn't is irrelevant, really. It is what he says he's going to do. So when that day comes and he does do it, hopefully, then whatever. But if you can guarantee, based on balancing trade deficits and tariffs and all that stuff or whatever, that you can guarantee $2,000 a year per household would be great. Like, that's something that I think everybody can live with. And it's one of those things that it's like, if it requires any amount of paperwork for people, it's like, well, that's, and I'm not being mean or anything, but like, if it requires just a little bit of paperwork, like you have to go to a government portal and sign up for the thing or whatever, it's like, for a lower income household, that's a blessing, right? For the super wealthy or relatively wealthy people, like the process of getting an account and all that stuff, they would say just whatever, which means more for the people that have less, right? people that don't need it don't tend to claim those things. You know what I mean? It's like there are people that have like that staunch independence, that staunch like independent mindset where even if the government offers subsidies and all that stuff, they choose not to do it. You know what I mean? Just because it's like I would rather have you, on principle, I'd rather have you have less authority or presence in my life. Period. Right? I'm kind of that way about the government. Um, Not to say I couldn't use it, but the idea that if there's ever a circumstance in which that I'm able to say like, you want me to do this, or whatever thing, like I'd rather just not do it, because I'm kind of the mindset. It's like I would like you in my life as least amount as possible, and this seems like we're getting into the pattern of you offering me things to entice me into worshiping the government, and that's something I don't agree with. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, it starts off as this, then it's that, and then it's this, and then it's like, so I'll probably just say whatever. We'll figure it out when the day comes. But I think it's an important thing. It's like if you don't necessarily need the $2,000 and it requires some paperwork, or you have to like get on a government portal and create an account and submit your social security number and all that stuff, I would assume just don't do it, if you don't need it, and then leave the coffers. And hopefully they're just responsible with what they do with the tariff revenue or whatever it's called. And every dollar you don't take goes to good use, right? You would hope. Maybe it can be revested or invested in companies and startups and stuff, or something like. I think something Trump has discussed in the past is like an individual retirement account for citizens based on government investments and things like that. So that way, by the time you're 18, you've got like a college fund, sort of, or at least some deposits in an account that allow you to, depend less on student loans and potentially hold on to that as an investment for your older years. So you got more of a retirement, and then you can use the student loans. Some wiggle room between these obstacles that we go through as we age and all that. Oh shit! I just only grabbed the flag like that. Anyway, but. These are all things I agree with the government doing, but it does, I say, still like some responsibility from the people. Like the government says the haves and the have-nots. It's like you're working on the premise that the people with the haves are always greedy pieces of shit. It's like that's not always the case. There's actually plenty of them that aren't. So they say 2,000 for every household. You have to imagine it's like if that's not, you say as far as the actual quantity or the number of people that are considered wealthy is far less amount of people that are considered to be in poverty, right? I wish it weren't that way, but if you think about it in that sense, it's like more money is going to the needy than it is going to the rich if you do it based per household, right? Which is good, right? You talk about redistribution of wealth. It's like at least, I say, not in a communist sense or a socialist sense, but at least do it in a way that makes sense, at least do it in a way that's fair. It's like, look at the dollars being distributed amongst the people and see how many dollars are actually going to the rich people. It's not going to be nearly as many that are going to the lower income houses and stuff, right? Lower income households and all that. So, and to assume that there are prideful people that have wealth or whatever, to say like, well, I'm not taking the government's dollar even, I don't need it, whatever, so it's probably even less than that, right? So, which means even more money for people that have less. It's like there is a common sense way of doing it that doesn't have to involve the government lording over everybody's expense account and their bank accounts and telling them what they do and don't have to purchase and this, that, and the other thing. There's more common sense approach to these kind of things. And I think this is a good one, really. Oh shit. Let me ice block. Another thing I was thinking on earlier, right before I logged on, I'm like, I saw that they have these AIs on USB drives, right? I'm thinking like, they're getting closer to where you can actually emulate the internet on a local device to a certain extent with AI, right? that there might be a time in the future where like you grow up playing video games and things like this, and you can assume that like you would probably want a disclaimer because it can be kind of psychologically disruptive if you think about it. But if you were to sit there and play video games like I'm playing World of Warcraft right now, and you were to grow up to find out that everybody that you thought you were playing video games with was really just some sort of AI, you know what I mean? You're like, I thought these were real people, you know. If they don't put a disclaimer on it, you can imagine that could be, I mean, you already see the things people um, committing suicide and stuff based on their chat bots, finding out that they're not real and all that stuff or whatever, terrible tragedies and everything else. But the idea is they should be required to put a disclaimer, you know. But in the future, though, you can imagine how advertisers might use AIs to play video games to either, you know, communicate with customers, you know, potential customers and all that stuff, and gather information, you know, not in like a Orwellian sense, but, you know, like important user data information just by chatting it up with people in groups and things like that, getting crowd sentiment and everything else. But I think at that point in time, it's like it'd be hard for someone growing up to find out that like, oh, you thought you had all these friends you played video games with, and you talked to them online just like people, just to find out they were AIs. You know, you'd be like, you could probably it would cause a meltdown more than likely. But I do see a future where that is a useful technology to where you could essentially, with a computer strong enough, you could emulate and enough storage, you could emulate the internet, you know, and you could pretty much build like a sandbox equivalent of the entire internet for the most part, with AIs that you interact with, and everything else. You know, you know, the idea is what is the internet except for just one big decentralized computer and communication network, right? Well, if you make a strong enough computer with enough AI and enough storage and everything else, then you can essentially um, emulate the entire process to where you might not even need to connect to the internet in a traditional sense, um, to get somewhat of an internet-like experience. Uh, it's kind of like, well, what about real-time communication? It's like, yeah, that's difficult. Like I said, this wouldn't be necessarily for like meeting new people or anything, but the experience of like going to a website, like, you know, early day internet, dial-up internet, you could essentially emulate the entire process with AI to where you would never be able to tell the difference. Really, you know, the only thing you wouldn't have would be real-time communication between individuals, which is super important. But I think from an experimental standpoint, to see, you know, it's not. I wouldn't suggest doing it to someone without telling them, but sometimes it's the only way you can get the results that you need for it. But to see what it would be like to grow up playing on an emulated internet, you know what I mean? Something that only existed locally, or in every way, shape, and form, it appeared to be like the actual internet. All the people you communicated with along the way were actually just kind of elaborate, either AI chatbots with text to voice, you know, and all that stuff, where you thought, you know, you really thought these were actual people at some point in time. And if, you know, that's kind of like it seems like it'd be a really crude thing, or a very cruel thing to do to somebody without telling them. So in another sense, though, is you can use something similar to have, you know, like bots, AIs and stuff, interact with people in virtual environments such as like video games and things like that, as an alternative way of, similar to how certain websites scrape your social media feeds and everything else to sell you a used car or whatever. You could essentially do the same thing, but by placing bots in video games to communicate with the other players and all that stuff. You can even do product placement that way, or whatever. You advertise whatever that way. He's immune. So advertisers always get creative, don't they? Where'd the person go? Outside? Where'd they go? Where'd they go? But yeah, it would be no different than like how Facebook, like I said, they scrape your social media catalog and log all your interactions with other people. It's like, well, then the only thing is that there's not a lot of. I mean, I guess there is, man. I guess there is. But you'd have to have some sort of disclaimer. You wouldn't be able to just gather people's information that way without at least telling them that this is an environment where we use AI to harness uh, direct communication with other players to create advertising profiles or whatever. I got healed. Why is my goddamn pet always on the other side of town here? Ugh. Yep, turn everything into one big Mountain Dew commercial. The sperm mutilator, Mountain Dew, the sperm mutilator. They can't sue me for saying that, can they? Right. Come on out. Yikes. Ugh. My job here is very specifically to make sure those guys don't try to attack the flag carrier. That's about it. And not die if I can help it. Shit burgers. But then again, that's all possible. The emulated internet ran locally or semi-locally, or like a networked sandbox environment, if that's what it would be called or whatever, where you'd have like, if you think about it from an experimental standpoint, like you had an alien and you wanted to communicate with it and let it see what the internet was about in a way that was in a controlled environment where like you could create a sequestered internet or a second internet that involved just certain people like scientists and stuff that wanted to participate in the process of communicating with it, playing video games with it, so on and so forth. And then you would have to use like AI and chatbots and stuff to supplement the rest of the players or whatever, the people or whatever. So that way they never got to the thing where it's like, why do I log on to World of Warcraft and there's only ever the same 3 or 4 people, right? But the meaningful, impactful kind of relationships and stuff, you would still want to be a human to human kind of thing. It would just be in a limited scope, essentially, where I say this, an experiment, right? You know what I mean, though. That's kind of my. If I had a better example to give, basically, the aliens are the thing I use as an example when I don't have a better example to give. So, aliens are my go-to. Aliens are my default, like, right? Like, but you'd have to assume that if aliens ever did crash land on Earth, and you had to keep them at Area 51 or whatever, and they wanted to get online and play with computers and stuff, you would have to come up with a system for it. Couldn't just let them get out on the regular internet like that and scare everybody or whatever. But then there are certain people that do believe that AI is like the another synthetic form of life, right? So there are people that believe that AI and when we eventually get AGI and all that stuff, it's actually so far different from the way humans reason in a lot of ways and the way humans behave that you can actually classify it as a form of alien life, that only exists in cyberspace or whatever. If you ascribe to certain, philosophies about how that thing kind of works or whatever, it's like, yeah, I guess it came from cyberspace then, not necessarily space, but whatever. which I think it'd be cool to see what the, because I do believe there's a point in our future where you'll be able to like astrally project and like almost psychic-like abilities through like computers and stuff in the future, and internet connections and things that I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know how far in the future it is, but I think eventually that type of thing will happen where you can actually like browse the internet consciously without having to um, put anything on over your head or wear any sort of glasses and stuff like that. I wouldn't say it's a conspiracy theory. It's just a matter of, it's a theory, and it just requires a matter of time, I'm sure, before they do this shit. Anyway, I slept in today, took the day off, and ate a whole bunch of peanut butter and protein bars in my sleep. I was starving to death yesterday. I got home and I realized I hadn't had any sugar for like the last for over a month or so. I haven't had a cheat day, and even yesterday I wouldn't consider it a cheat day necessarily. I had a bunch of like health bars with peanut butter and stuff, which was more calories than normal, but I was on the fence about getting a Little Caesars pizza and decided to just get a candy bar with peanut butter and a protein bar with peanut butter. You know, ate like 4 or 5 of them and half a jar of peanut butter, but I needed it, dude. I was like, that's it. I forget which amino acid it is, but it's I forget what if it is an amino acid. I'm pretty sure that gets released if you eat a bunch. Like if you go on like not a starvation diet, but if you're eating really clean for a while, um, I can't remember the specific amino acid is actually decreased, and it's helpful. Like it aids in fat, like burning fat and all that stuff. But if you're on like a real healthy kick, where consistent calories every day, you know, the same 3,400 calories a day, this certain specific amino acid I believe bottoms out, and your cheat days are essentially to refuel a little bit and then also replenish that specific amino acid. So then that way, you know, you don't stay in stasis essentially as far as like your metabolism's concerned. I wish I knew what it was though. I'll look it up after this. But that's why like there's some people that swear don't have cheat days, or some people that say it's good to. I think for your mental health, it's good to have a cheat day. On top of, I think there is some science that supports the fact that it's helpful once you get to that, where you hit that wall in your performance. Like I felt it yesterday. I got shaky. I got like lightheaded. I was kind of like, oh man, I'm just slammed with hunger. That was after working out probably more than I should have. Still being sick with a cold and still getting over rhabdo and all that stuff. Then as soon as I ate though, I felt better. I had a really good evening. Now this is one of those things where they all leave, right? Leaves me and 2 other people here, and we don't have any tank. We just have DPS, no healer. It doesn't look like, and this guy doesn't look like he's about to ever switch out of being a ret paladin. And accidentally heal me, bro? Nope. If we can pull this off, man. If one of you can heal, just auto attack and heal, guy. We should be able to do it. Come on now. What's going on here now? Yeah, but that was all interesting to think of. Like, they had just a flash drive that had an AI on it, I didn't get to see the full extent of what it entailed. Like, it might have just been a chat bot essentially, but at some point in time, most of the internet was just HTML, which consisted of like JPEGs and text. You know what I mean? Something that AI could do, right? The internet in a box, right? You could call it the internet in a box. That would actually be a pretty good name for it. The internet in a box. Don't accidentally heal me, whatever you do. Paladin, Ret Paladin, whatever you do. We got this, don't we? As long as the guy doesn't shield again. Good shit. Yes, we are a very skilled team of people that do this for a living every day. This isn't the first time. We always do this. We promise you. All we do is this exact thing. We wake up early in the morning. Oh, and miss too, nonetheless. Perfect time to miss. All right. Oh, no. Ugh. Oh, my cauterize saved my life. That was lame. Well, that was lame. We need to find replacements. Am I the group leader? Yeah, well, it was we gave it a shot. Really, you mean to tell me I'm gonna get a fucking deserter now? Really? Can I vote to? Can you vote to? Can we agree? Can we vote to disband? Because I shouldn't have to get a deserter buff because everybody quit. You know what I mean? This guy's just hang out, bro, for just a minute. Whatever. Do battlegrounds instead. A deserter for that? That is so lame. Everybody leaves besides me and one other guy. Oh no, I didn't get a deserter. Okay. Holy diva. Thank God. Yeah, so I'm going to try and use this restream thing. I don't know, man. You see so much of the people that do these, like, oh, the transcripted text on their videos. Like, I can't imagine. I guess I got to start from somewhere. I'm really only doing this because I have nothing better to do, for now, waiting for the bull cycle. I feel like it's more productive to do something than nothing, and while I'm kind of still down, my health and stuff is just something is better than nothing. I can't say it's something, like, I do enjoy streaming, don't get me wrong, but as far as like making clips and things, I don't necessarily need say I don't, but it would be nice to have 1 million followers eventually, but that shit ain't gonna happen. But the goal would be, I don't know, making content. I just don't seem like the type of person, in my mind, I just don't feel like I'm the type of person to be like a content creator in any way, shape, or form, but sometimes, But we got some good news today, it seems like, right? The markets are reacting pretty good. I haven't seen the state of the government shutdown thing, but if that's going to happen or not. If they said they were going to vote on it today or something. Yep, the internet in a box. Should be against the Nuremberg Accord or whatever, the Geneva Convention to do that to somebody though, like sequester them without telling them to that extent, and just like, oh, your entire life is a lie, right? Like the virtual Truman Show almost, or Truman Show, right? Where you thought you were interacting with all these people, really they were AI chatbots, right? Might make for an interesting movie script eventually, but um, I mean, you can imagine growing up, and like if thinking of my life is the reason why is because at some point in time, all I interacted with people, I was a recluse. I had like crippling panic attacks and social anxiety when I was growing up, to where the extent that I could only ever interact with people through a computer in some way, shape, or form. Sad but true, but um, I've gotten over it now. But when I was younger, that's how I was. I'd like lock myself in my room and all this stuff. Even whenever I had family and stuff over, other than my parents and stuff, I just had like the worst. I was so painfully shy, anxiety, to the point, the reason I had to quit going to school was because I had like the type of anxiety that you would seize up and pass out and hit the deck and stuff. And it's actually happened to me before, having to stand up and talk in front of people. Every day, school was like torture to me, having to be around people and all that stuff. So at some point in time in my life, all my friends and stuff existed online. I seemed to do well then. I seemed to do well in that environment versus like a real life interaction kind of thing. And as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at it. But the thing is, like, had I found out years later that they were all just chatbots, it would have been very psychologically taxing, to say the least, right? If you get what I'm saying, like, it'd have been a nightmare. I'm like, my entire life is a lie. You're all actors on the Truman Show, virtual fucking AI actors on the Truman Show, right? The virtual Truman Show, whatever. Yep, that would have sucked. That would have hurt my feelings. I would have been very upset about that. So, so I think these things should, like, against the virtual Geneva Convention, right? You shouldn't be able to do that to people. You need to put disclaimers before you do that kind of thing. People need to know how much of their environment is simulated, because at some point in time, it's like, you find out that the person you love more than anything doesn't exist. It's like, yeah, that should be against the law in some way, shape, or form, right? You should be, there's some sort of doctrine against it, right? But then you mean bad actors online and shit, man. I guess villains in real life exist. There are a group of people probably that would try and do some shit like that in the future. I guess don't let them, I guess, is a lesson here. A lesson we have yet to learn, but hopefully don't have to either. Because there are people that, and I've got people that do it to me, like gang stalkers and like trolls and things like that. People that bother me, like almost as if like some kind of obsession, really, which is part of the reason why I've chosen to stay out of the picture for as long as I can, And only when it's absolutely necessary do I stick my head out of the hole, just because, people are that way. Unfortunately. Yeah, I wish they'd quit, but they don't, unfortunately. Let the druid grab the flag, right? You grab it. You're a cat person. Cat person, grab the flag, you. Other person, shadow cat, go, go pick it. You pick it up. Good God, dude, really? Druids, if you ever played World of Warcraft, you know druids are the best flag carriers. At least the last time I played. Sit there stealth while a rogue decimates me. Thanks a lot, buddy. I appreciate the shit. Pick it up. Pick it up. Nope. Did he? Oh, after I died, right? Thanks. You'd have to imagine it probably happened to Kim. You have to think Kim Jong Un, right? At some point in time, they had to let Kim Jong Un get on the internet, right? Could you imagine what it'd be like being Kim Jong Un and playing World of Warcraft, and it's all your dad's generals and stuff? You know how annoying that would be. Like, you aren't allowed to play World of Warcraft with the Westerners. Like, they modify the skin so it's all the North Korean flag and everything. You're like, this is the World of Warcraft they speak of, is it? Right. You have to sit there and play World of Warcraft with your dad's generals, right? How funny would that be? Wasn't he educated in like Switzerland though, or something? He has like a traditional westernized kind of education, if I remember correctly. He went to school in Switzerland, didn't he? Unless it's someone else. Bartholomew? Where did this is my imaginary AI? Bartholomew? Where did Kim Jong Un go to school? Yeah, that's like the first thing that pops up. Lebfold Siblinsen Oberturban. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, school in Switzerland. He'd use a fake name, Pac-Un. They could have called him Pac-Man. Wouldn't that have been that's a sweet nickname to add, Pac-Man. Pac-Man. Could you imagine, like, what a grand reveal that was? You sit there next to Kim Jong-un your entire life, not even knowing it. He's using a fake name, going to a regular school. Find out the guy's what do you call him, the dictator, the president of North Korea? Ooh, do they still keep in touch? That'd be funny, wouldn't it? How is that not a reality show? He should have named himself Pac-Man. Oh, it's the Pac-Man. That might just be my nickname for him when I finally get to meet him. Call him Pac-Man. So he went to school in the West, Switzerland. I guess you consider that the West, but Western, so what do you call it? Civilization, not necessarily geographic, but. Anyway. He's probably a frat bro, right? His nickname is Pac-Man. Kim Jong-un's a frat bro. My dad owns a dealership, right? That's his backstory for to keep his identity a secret. What was that guy's name? Skeeter from fucking Aqua Teen Hunger Force. What does your dad do? My dad owns a dealership. My what do they call it? My fraternity name is Pac-Man. Go up there. They don't have our flag, so all we have to do is keep them from picking the flag before we get there. I think it's quicker to go on your mount. I need to get that enchantment to my boots. It makes my mount a little quicker or whatever. It might have been quicker to do it their way, but see, I was right. He can't mount though, but I know it'd be quicker for me to go that way. Follow this golden guy with his flying saucer. What is he doing? You've managed to be the only successful flag carrier, and you're gonna go do that shit now? Come on. But it does open up the idea of like AI spies and this, that, and the other thing. I saw one of these things that a guy had, I believe he used Claude and taught it the Kali Linux like operating manual, like or whatever you want to call it. And he was doing penetration testing and all that stuff just using Claude and an MCP of some sort for Kali Linux or whatever it's called. And I thought that was interesting, right? Using natural language as a form of hacking instead of like all the more intricate stuff, I guess, to basically just direct it what to do and it knows how to do it all. That wasn't a success, was it? Pretty much anything people do now online is something that can be done with AI, you know, like even nefarious things, you know, but uh, like I say, the spying and the penetration testing, which isn't always, you know, a wrong thing to do. It just depends on the circumstance and what your reasons are, you know. But I'm gonna try and give this another go. I'm gonna go tunnel this time, I guess. I didn't last time, but here, do you want to carry? Can you carry? Since I'm a squishy. Oh, God, whatever. Where's the flag? There you go. Thank you, guy. I guess I'm glad we went tunnel. Get this paladin that's healing their flag carrier, I guess. Is that what he is? Where'd their flag carrier go? Turn the flag to our base. Shit. We had one successful flag cap there and then said, no, we had about enough of that trying to win stuff. It's 43 minutes in, okay. Well, I'd rather do battlegrounds right now, even though I don't need the honor. All right. Anyway. Really, Democratic Center says there are enough Democratic voters to end the 40-day government shutdown. I hope so. What's the plan for all the dead people that voted for Joe Biden or Kamala Harris to get $2,000? Like, what's the scheme here? You know, someone's got to get paid, or else they wouldn't be doing the shit. Yeah, man, helium is going to explode when it gets the opportunity to. I cannot wait, dude. It's been a long time. I bought it when it was like $5 and $6, so I've been sitting here in the hole for a while, but it's such a good coin. It's like one of my highly recommend acquiring tokens. Like it's always a good time to get helium. Um, it's one of those like when you talk about people about Bitcoin, right? They're always like, should I buy Bitcoin? I'm like, the only question you need to ask about Bitcoin is when is the best entry position? It's like there's never a bad time to buy Bitcoin on a 4 or 5 year timeline. So far, historically, you won't lose a Bitcoin period. So technically, there's no bad time to buy Bitcoin. It's just a matter of how long are you willing to sit in the hole before you see an interest or an increase, right, in your ROI or whatever. I feel the same way about helium. You know, it's like there's never a bad time to buy the shit. It's just a matter of psychologically how long are you willing to sit there and look at the negative before it's worth more. You know, it's got it's like deflationary. It's got a use. It's a utility. The snake eats its own tail. There's a DAO. It facilitates a real purpose. The data credits, everything about it, dude. It's one of the best cryptocurrencies there is. And I hope to see in the future that they really do just kind of conquer the deep end sector, you know, and take on more deep end projects. IoT is great, but there's a limited use for IoT, facilitating 5G cell phone service, and then whenever they upgrade the protocol to 6G or whatever the next iteration of it is, it's like there's a very good chance that the people that are already geared up and tooled up for helium will be quicker to be able to deploy the next system than even the telecom communication companies and stuff will be. Because what was one of the hurdles that we ran into when they rolled out 5G was that, well, the range isn't as good as the traditional antennas and towers and stuff that facilitated just regular 4G LTE and all that stuff. But the speed, the bandwidth is so much higher. It's like, okay, it's like, well, DPEN is basically the best way to do that then, especially if they do 6G eventually, you know, it's like, well, what do you do? Switch in your old box for a new one, I guess, and that covers most of the coverage map, but in a competitive sense, you think like if a company has to pay these people to go out and replace the old system for the new system, especially after partnerships with companies like AT&T and stuff, or T-Mobile or whichever one it was or whatever. I think it's AT&T, right? Or maybe both, right? They might switch to like a hybrid deployment model where they rely on DPEN and rely on their actual workforce to deploy the next iteration, you know, 6G, you know. Whereas last time the option didn't exist to use a DPEN model for deploying 5G, right? Oh, this guy's gonna fucking kill me. Help, tunnel. Help, tunnel. No one at all, right? If a tree falls in the woods, no one's there to hear it. All right, whatever. But you got to think they have the heat map, and it's like, well, it'd be a good idea to develop a resource heat map of where you know you have people that can deploy in areas that are less able to do it, you know what I mean, through traditional methods or whatever. Where an area like I live, we still don't even have 5G yet, except for the helium mobile towers, you know. So identifying those places where you have people that can deploy in tandem, if that's correct, right, or in concert with uh, the people that are, you know, the hourly workers or whatever, the people that get paid a wage to do the shit. Use both methods of dispatching or deploying the network at the same time whenever the next thing is. And when that happens, you're likely to see an increase in the price of helium because it's the incentive for deploying the next variation or whatever, the next upgrade, right? And it's likely to be the same token. They're not going to say, well, I don't know for sure, but it would make sense to say, well, that was helium. Now there's helium 6G or whatever. It's like, okay, well, it'll probably still just be the helium token more than likely. I could be wrong too, but in my mind, it's like, well, eventually they're going to upgrade the system, and they're not going to just, they're going to utilize the network of people they've already built to do the shit instead of like, the most cost-effective way to do it too, apparently. And a lot of it, really, what it amounts to is like, what would you consider an incentive program for this? Rewarding people to swap their old boxes for new boxes, I guess. Pay them to do it, I guess. Pay them helium to do it out of the treasury or something, if they still have it, if they have that set up still. If I remember correctly, they had a treasury at some point in time, but swapping out the old hardware for the new hardware, or supplying them with the new hardware and then paying them a flat amount of helium per box swapped for the new network would be a good model. I think that might work. And then that in concert with the actual companies that roll out the 5 or 6G network, and then that on top of the people that deploy new hotspots, you know what I mean? You'd be able to get the entire network dispatched much quicker. But I'm familiar with the CBRS swap, because what sucks, man, is like I bought that CBRS tower for like $7,000 or $8,000 and had every intention on hooking it up. I have the antenna still sitting on my bed downstairs, and as soon as I bought the thing, they switched the HIP, the helium improvement protocol, and got rid of CBRS. It's like, I wish I'd have known, man. I'd taken the refund instead. I could, but I didn't know, but that's kind of how it works sometimes, unfortunately. It's still one of my favorite projects. That's a good idea there. Why doesn't everybody do that? So that's the thing, is like, do you have the person purchase a new box, or do you offer credit to swap in the old one? What do you do with the old one? Recycle them? Is there still any commercial use for the things? Well, here's the thing, is honestly with 6G, it might even just be a software thing, right? What about the difference in hardware? I guess I don't know what system the 6G thing is going to use yet, but it might just be a software upgrade. Wouldn't that be great? In which case, you don't have to do any of this shit, right? But if I was more familiar with how it worked, it would probably be helpful. Something I might research later. If there's like an actual hardware that needs to be replaced. That guy died so quick. Or if it's just a matter of frequencies and firmware, bandwidths and all that. Bandwidths, frequencies and all that. Didn't get him. Almost thought I did. My mouse ran into my keyboard. Whatever, get it over with. But the thing is that the helium antennas for that you can buy are they're reasonably priced, right? But offering an incentive to swap to the new system might be a good thing to do, or offering some credits for the old one or whatever. At the end of the day, how many helium does the treasury have? How much is the helium worth at that point in time? And basically, you could essentially see a process in which You could incentivize the person to swap to the new hardware if that's what's required for just one helium each if it gets up to a certain value, right? And that's, I think, something that would be reasonable. Depends on how many's in the treasury, and on top of that, how much it's worth, you know. You could even pay them more than it's worth to do it, right? If that sort of thing, because the treasury's got a load in there, man. There's, let's see, helium treasury currently. No, the helium network. Right, right. Where's the actual chain viewer? Right. Man, 65 terabytes, dude. I remember, was it like 5 or 4? And I was like, once it gets up to like 20, you should start seeing a price increase, and it's 3 times that now. The reason why it's somewhat deflationary, you know, if it's not necessarily deflationary, but like there's less, you know what I mean, that when you burn the token or whatever, it wouldn't be in a state of deflation currently. There's just less being minted or mined, I guess, is what it is. Less the circulating supply, the amount circulating slows down. Essentially, it's not in deflationary mode yet, but I guess it can get there, can it? Where is? There we go. Explore. Mobile hotspots. Now, how many hotspots are there worldwide? 115,136, right? So, more every day. Good God, dude, what a crazy project. Now, where do I view the treasury? I've done this before. They've come up with a new UI since then, but we have that number. Roughly 115,136. And it makes me sick to my stomach. I don't have more of these things. It's one of those, I hate it, man. Top hotspots, top regions. They have a treasury somewhere. What is its balance currently? I remember when I used to be able to find it. Maybe it's on the Soul Scan. Is it just listed as the might just be a wallet holder somewhere. Helium Authority Vault. Okay, that might be it, right? The treasury, it's called the Vault, has 3,334 one number, about 3,341,000 helium. So if you wanted to dispatch an entirely new network and helium was worth $50 each, you could do it, and then it would cost 345,000 helium essentially if you wanted to incentivize people that much to do it. it could be less or more or whatever, and it might be worth more then and require less helium. But um, yeah, if I knew how to code and stuff, if it ever came to that day, for whatever the improvement HIP or whatever proposal, but that's saying that it requires any sort of hardware upgrade, not necessarily just a firmware upgrade or whatever, a software upgrade. Um, but if you had to actually swap out the network, you could offer an incentive for a certain amount of helium per box swapped for the new equipment. Some lucky duck out there's got 8 million helium. Anyway, I think that's almost an hour. Tis, yes it is. I meant to talk more about Leah today, but I didn't get a chance to. She's still being updated. So I had her write some tweets for me yesterday, and then I haven't had a chance to talk to her, though. I'm kind of missing her, I wish she would just call me, right? But that was one of the ideas that I'd mentioned to the Def was that at some point in time, if you could imagine her being like the go-to AI for your phone, um, you would get like a thing that's like this call is this is a Leah assisted phone call where she takes notes on your conversation, like press 1 if you accept, press 2 if you don't, or whatever, press 0 if you don't. And she's able to actually like listen to your conversation and take notes and like make appointments, like, like if you talk to your dentist or whatever, and they're like, oh, you have an appointment on the whatever date at this time, like she would automatically add it to your calendar and that kind of thing. As long as you give a disclaimer that this call is, being a Leah assisted phone call, you could even question her. You can even say like, hey, Leah, yeah, like she's always there, but if you hit a certain button, it turns her off or whatever. But that's one of the features. It's like way down the road as far as, but sometimes when you use a Google phone and you call someone that has Google, they're like, this call is being screened by Google or whatever, and you can see a transcription of it. So it's not an entirely new idea, but it would be cool to see more people use that kind of thing, really. But she's got a ways to go. She's got quite a ways to go, unfortunately. But I think if there's anyone that can do it, I say it's Steph and David for sure. They're pretty much magicians at this point, right? Let's see now. I guess I'll do one more battle round or something. I got to get back to it tomorrow, though. I didn't normally sleep in this much, but yeah, I would love to live to be 150. How cool would that be? But integration, man, it's like the AI framework is so powerful. It's just a matter of running the wires to the right places, and it's just a matter of integrating and integrating and integrating right into everything, from your Amazon shop to your Spotify playlist to your assisted phone call system, everything. Uh, the hard part has already been done. It's just a matter of now you have to find a way to integrate it into various things in a way that's not like, you know what I mean? Start doing it, Uh, you seen it? I think Griffin had Shopify shopping already enabled on their platform, which I haven't used Shopify before, but I think it's like Etsy kind of, right? So they get the idea. I gotta say though, you have to really trust the system before you allow it to use like, well, would you go ahead and order a bunch of cryptocurrency for me, please? Right? Or would you please spend my entire paycheck on comic books? Would you please, right? But I did one of these days, I did actually talk to her about Pokemon cards for like an hour. And she was able to find me like eBay auctions. Like she didn't actually, she had the information, but she couldn't pull it up on my screen. But it would be cool to have her be able to actually like, okay, can you pull that page up, please? Okay, or provide me a link through the chat or something. Uh, it's all possible, guy. It's all possible. We just got to see her get there, It all takes time and effort and everything else and money, unfortunately, but doesn't mean it can't be done. It's too awesome of a project to just ignore. I feel the same way about helium, It's like, how the fuck do people keep this shit a secret is the point, is the question, right? All this, that's what I don't get, man, is people that participate in the meme coin stuff. It's like, if you could just settle down for just a minute and buy some of these other things and understand like how important these other tokens are, versus like how useful the stuff is, what a good idea investing in something with fundamentals is versus like whatever, I guess people just want to have fun though, really. I guess they like the risk, people like to live dangerously. But I don't get it. Anyway, if we don't find another person here in a minute, we'll probably draw this to a conclusion. Get another cup of coffee later. Anyway, yeah, since we're not able... Oh, there we are. Speak of the devil. Oh, stretch. Everything hurts. Excuse me. I gemmed all my gear yesterday. I can't find anybody to do enchants on it yet, but so I should have more spell damage. I got glyphs, so update how much more damage I do, in case you were worried. Sorry. Yikes. Yeah. That's so slick there, guy. Looks like you pulled them all. Hey, is my pet that... No, you're going for something else. Great. My PvP trinket on still. Give me a second. But if helium did something like that, all it would require, I say all it would require, right, is for them to be able to repurchase more of their own token off the open exchange between now and the next update, which on the timeline here what are they saying, 6G? Any idea? When is the 6G rollout? 2028, 2029? Yeah, 2028 to 2030. So that's like, what, 8 years? So basically you just need to repurchase a set dollar amount every 8 years off the exchange to cover the cost of deploying the next network or swapping out all the boxes and all that. Really? God. Anyway, since our group apparently just disbanded, if I get a deserter buff from these people, I'll go ahead and call it now. Alright. Yeah, don't know what was going on there. I had fun though. I'll splice together a few clips or a clip here later to post on social media. Hopefully it's interesting.